I'm talking with Hassan Oswald, the director of Higher Love. Hi, Hassan.
Hi. Hi, guys.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Where are you right now? Where am I talking to you from?
Harlem, New York. Just got back.
Okay.
Yep,
So I'm in Long Island, but you're in similar situation, staying home for the most part, not going outside too much.
exactly. Yeah, kind of like a controlled quarantine, just going out for the essentials. But yeah, life's starting to, just looking out the window now, life's starting to kind of go back to normal, for better or for worse. A lot of people on the streets and stuff, a lot of masks
Right.
though, which is good to see.
Right. Absolutely. So I wanted to just dive right in, and so I wanted to start off by asking, how did you come to know Daryl and Nani?
Sure. So I had uh, Camden. My father was originally from Camden. That's where the film takes place. So I always had this kind of dark fascination with the city itself. And so when I decided to direct a movie, it was not about the opioid epidemic. It was about kind of broadly post-industrial America and this kind of crumbling American dream in cities like, it wasn't just Camden to start. We actually started in Flint, Michigan. So Flint, the whole Rust Belt. Camden was just where the story really picked up. And when we met Daryl and Nana, we thought, we're going to stay in Camden. This is where the story is going to take place. So I was a first time director, and also I was relatively new. I was English teacher until about 2015. So I had very little, formal film training or anything.
Wow.
So I didn't have a budget to do this. I was coming off of a Nat Geo film on the Syrian civil war that they had seen a video that had gone viral that I did on YouTube. And so that was my only training. And then filming with a great crew with Nat Geo. So I didn't have a budget for this. So I didn't have any producers. I didn't have an editor. I didn't really have anything. I was wearing all the hats. So I had no other choice but just to go kind of door to door in Camden, which is a daunting task if you know the city at all. And so I met them just by going door to door. And I had met Nani first, and once you see the film, you'll see the motel scene. That was the second night we met her. She was 7 months pregnant at the time.
Mm.
And so I met her and was filming with her, and then I got a very angry phone call from someone, and threatening and how dare you film with her. And then the next day I got a phone call again. He said, "Can you meet for coffee?" And that was Daryl. And so he said, "All right, I've been, searching for Nani every morning for the last 10 years. So you have her side of the story. Let me also show you my side of the story." So that's how that thread kind of took off in that direction of, yes, I spent a lot of time with this group of addicts or individuals suffering from addiction, but I also was able to show the other side of Daryl and show the toll, like this human toll that it takes on the family life.
Absolutely. It's always fascinating to me when I've talked to documentary filmmakers how often that the actual story that comes together was not the story that they were necessarily starting off to tell.
Yeah.
The story kind of presents itself.
Yeah, and we had probably even when we had met Daryl and Nani, we had probably 8 to 10 vignettes, and we were going to kind of string them together to tell the story of Camden.
Mm-hmm.
And probably a year into filming, we realized that it would be stronger if we put Camden as kind of a backdrop. Camden as a character wasn't really working that well. That's really where the opioid epidemic got pushed to the forefront, led by Daryl and Nani. So yeah, we had a profile or a vignette with a policeman, a local boxer, a different group of individuals suffering from addiction, a halfway house. So we had a bunch of them, and then it kind of just distilled into Daryl and Nani and the group.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, so I understand Nani, Iman, Nikki, that they all feel trapped kind of by their addiction, the feeling of having no choice. What I found interesting was the willingness to lead that life in front of your camera. And that was a little harder for me to comprehend. How did you get there with them? How do you reach that level of trust with them?
Yeah, and I think going back to what I started with, because I had no other choice but to go door to door, I really met them at this kind of base level of um, I'm a relatively new filmmaker. Um, I'm at your doorstep, and I know cities like Camden haven't had their voice. They haven't regained any kind of agency. So especially these cities, sorry, these cities in particular, but especially these type of characters who are suffering from addiction, they've never had someone tell their story.
Mm,
So I agree that the access that they gave was pretty remarkable. The trust they gave me as well was pretty remarkable. So I think just because I was there at their door saying, "Let me tell your story," and also I was there with them a lot, so they kind of just forgot about me.
mm,
Um, and so, and always with documentary film, anytime you turn a camera on, or any film, anytime you turn a camera on, the dynamic does change. But I think by the end and the middle, yeah, probably by a year shooting the middle portion of the film, I was really able to just almost be a fly on the wall as they live their lives.
mm,
And so they just, I guess they just trusted me enough to, or they just got used to me being around so much, but
mhm,
they just trusted me enough to, it was as if I wasn't there.
mhm. And when you're doing this, I mean, again, this is one of those strange things where intellectually I understand the documentarian's job, which is to tell their story, not interfere with their story. But you also have to keep some emotional distance while you're doing that. And I want to come back to that in a second. But what I wanted to ask you first was, were there moments where you kind of did get involved that you maybe that you can't really talk about, but were there moments where you felt the need to get involved at some level, or were you able to keep that separation the entire time?
Sure. Yeah. So with the group, there was a lot of situations um, where they would be ODing, or the line between fishtailing, as they call it, which looks like an OD to anyone, to actually OD is very blurred. So even the first night of filming in that motel, there is an episode of this where I immediately had to be like, okay, am I going to do stuff like call? So we got Narcan trained. That's the you spray up the nose. So we were going to do that if our characters OD'd, or I was going to do that if the characters OD'd. What really became challenging was after the baby was born. Um, the baby was Daryl was doing the best he could. Nani was doing the best she could at trying to be a mother, but there was a lot of times with myself, Nani, and the baby alone in the house, and there was situations where I was stepping in, and I made that decision right away that this this is going to be what's going on in the camera is less important than what's going on with this little baby. So, for example, he'd crawl up the stairs. There's a scene in the film. He'd crawl up the stairs, teetering on the edge of disaster, and I'd be right behind him. Or multiple times, I took cigarettes out of his. He would put everything in his mouth, so I'd find him and I'd take cigarettes out of his mouth. Febreze, he'd spray it all over in his mouth. Syringes a few times, which was very troubling. Um, so yeah, I made that decision very early on to keep a watchful eye, uh, and it is something that still kind of I carry with me that maybe I didn't do enough. But we actually had a cut, like one of the almost the last cut. There was a scene where I take cigarettes out of his mouth, and for the first time, you can see my hand go into the camera. But yeah, it was difficult, and it was difficult to keep my distance. But I made
Mhm.
that decision early on, especially with Darnez the baby.
When in situations like that, did you find you wouldn't maybe necessarily tell Daryl all of that, or would you go ahead and just tell him what had happened?
I would tell him what had happened. He knew because I was only there for a limited amount of time,
Okay.
and he was with them three the rest of the time. So he knew, and it was kind of just he was in such a I won't give too much away, but he was waiting. He couldn't afford daycare. He was waiting for her, and she was finally looking like she was turning it around. So there was hope that she was going to be a mom. And he thought those things had stopped. But I would never hide anything from him. But he definitely knew what was going on. It's just he was out of resources
You're right.
to
Right.
help.
Right. No, it was obvious. And there were some moments that, I mean, just as a viewer, I can't imagine for you, but as a viewer, there were some moments that are almost indescribable. Uh, After the visit to the pediatrician, where where he just has had it with her, where you know he's been keeping it together and he just cannot stand being around her anymore. That was such obviously all the moments are real moments. So this sounds weird to say, but that was such a real moment in that you could see all the pain behind his anger. You could see the anger was just an outlet for his pain. It was very hard to watch that. And then when they get the visit home, when she's considering going to rehab, and that I guess the counselor
Yeah.
comes and visits, and you can see he is just trying so hard not to cry as she starts talking about it. And so you mentioned this, but I just wanted to kind of come back to this. So, what kind of toll did this take on you? Did you have to? How did you decompress when you were in the midst of all of this?
Yeah. It was tough. It was really tough, especially since I didn't really, well, actually, I would say that the fact that I didn't really know what I was doing, so I didn't know what I was doing wrong, um, I think that helped. So
Mm.
I was constantly just flying by the seat of my pants, filming whatever, doing whatever to get this story on camera. So a lot of my kind of personal life, my whole personal life was bundled into the production of this film.
Hmm.
So I had a lot going on where I couldn't slow down and think about things because I wasn't sure. So, for example, I donated my blood for a good portion of the film in order to pay for a lot of
Oh
things.
gosh.
There was a lot of financial strain, and so I definitely turned to that to kind of protect myself. But also, I do think there's a saying I'll butcher it, but it's something like we do become journalists become the stories they tell, and I do agree with that. But I would also say that the camera does it provides a bit of a filter almost. Like I was able to separate myself from from Daryl's struggles, from Nani's struggles. It was a lot more difficult to separate myself from, and a lot of guilt from what was going on with Darnez,
Mm.
with not being able to kind of, and I helped him as much as I could. I helped him with paperwork and arranging phone calls, but there was only a limit. It had to be him,
Mhm.
not just for the film, but it had to be him because he had been struggling with this for 10 years. If I provide some artificial antidote to his struggles, then it's just going to go back to normal. So it had to be him. But I still, of course, feel like maybe I didn't do enough dealing with the kid.
Mm.
But yeah, I was able to either, I'm not sure my therapist would agree, but I was able to kind of push it to a compartment of my brain just because I was so busy desperately trying to get this film made
Mhm.
that I was able to put those thoughts on the back burner. And I will say also, it is a very, very hard place to film.
Mhm.
I'm in Iraq not right now, but I just got back on Saturday. I was there for 4 months, and I feel a lot more safe and secure, and of course I've grown as a filmmaker, but I feel a lot more safe and secure in Iraq than I did ever in Camden. So
Wow.
I do carry those kind of dark memories of what happened in that city. And I love the city and I love the people.
Mhm.
But yeah, I definitely carry some stuff from the story, but also a lot of stuff from just being in that city
Mhm.
for so long.
So speaking of Camden, ironically, I'm reading now that through the Black Lives Movement and the talk of disbanding the police, that Camden is one of the cities they're actually looking to as a city that, quote, successfully did this. And this had been done during the period you were filming there. I was just curious, did you have any thoughts about that? How, I mean, maybe that is true. I don't know, but I'm
Sure.
just curious what
So
your impression is.
yeah, and I can't speak at this in depth because I just got home and I haven't been. So me leaving Iraq was one of the hardest things I had to do. All the airports are so I had to walk into Turkey, and that was kind of a chaotic 3 weeks. But yeah, I am aware of the national press it's getting now. What Camden did with its police. I believe that was actually back in 2011. So they disbanded their whole police force and then rehired. This was under Christie, and then rehired or rebuilt their police force. And they've been getting national recognition for their success for this for almost 10 years now. And then, of course, with what's going on across the country, it's now back in the spotlight. I will say the Camden PD were incredible when we were there. And the way so one of the vignettes that didn't make the final cut was Vidal Rivera. He's a local policeman. And they really focus on meeting their citizens on the street, door to door. They walk their beat a lot. And filming with them I think we were there with him for about 4 months. It really struck me as a stark difference to what's going on in a place like Harlem, even, when they share a lot of similarities. And I know there is some debate about how effective it actually was and why it was actually effective. I know there's a lot of people who say that the disbanding actually did a lot of harm and statistics are skewed, but it definitely does provide an interesting possible cure for what's going on by looking at Camden. And yeah, New York Times just did a great piece on it, which I need to read as soon as possible.
Another question that came to my mind as we were talking earlier, and I'm gonna, if this isn't something you're comfortable talking with, that's absolutely fine.
Sure.
But you talked about being raised, if I remember right, you were raised Muslim, and and walking into this very difficult situation as a filmmaker. And I know a lot of people with strong religious backgrounds who also do work as social workers, working in very difficult situations, and how that is one of their coping mechanisms for dealing with these situations. Kind of, I don't want to say a way of separating themselves from the situation, but a way of processing what their role in the situation is. And I was wondering if that's something that played any part with you and how you dealt with this.
No, I was raised Muslim. I don't practice. I'm not religious, but I will say that it does play in a bit in the sense that going to Camden, I was an outsider. I mean, the color of my skin, the fact that I wasn't from New Jersey even, I was from, it's not a long drive, but I was definitely an outsider in that city. And a lot of questions in Q&As and different panels I've been on during our festival run have been, either what gave you they didn't word it like this, but what gave you the right to tell this story? Or how did they receive you as an outsider? And I say that I had never even thought about it until these panels or Q&As because it was such a non-issue. I was never an outsider to these Camden people. Was never, I never once thought that, you know, I'm the only white guy in this motel room or in these 10 city blocks probably. They really welcomed me in. So I really wasn't the outsider. And they were just, you know, they were just happy that they now had some, you know, slight agency over their story to kind of, you know, show that nobody, and when you watch this film, you'll hear some background of what these characters used to be like. And so they just wanted to say, you know, nobody makes the choice to lose everything and end up in the gutter for a decade, 2 decades, in Camden, New Jersey, you know, one of the poorest, hardest, most violent cities in America. No one makes that choice. So here's how that happened to me. So they were just happy to do that. So I didn't ever lean on religion or spiritual aspects to get me through it, but I did feel that other people expected me to be the outsider and I wasn't. And as a Muslim, growing up in America, going to Catholic school, it was that same feeling. But in Camden, it was, you know, negligible, and growing up, it was, you know, quite evident.
Mm-hmm. What was that opening radio program?
Yeah, so that was Opie and Anthony.
Okay.
And if you, it's like an hour. We had a lot longer of that cut in, but it's about an hour of just. It happened right after they disbanded the police.
Mm-hmm.
So Opie and Anthony, you know, they're just kind of assholes. So we wanted to. They just ripped. It's actually quite. I would encourage listening to it. So we wanted to put that in there to show what the world has thought, what the world has thought of Camden for the last 50 years is kind of distilled into this. You know, they should just nuke it. Everyone should just burn down their own houses. And so we just want to put that in there as an opening of this is what you say it is, and here are the people living it.
No, it set the stage perfectly, and the contrast between that. I know it's supposed to be funny, but the contrast between that dismissive
right
attitude, just using them as a punchline, and then the people that are actually living there,
right,
especially given the political culture right now, I felt like that was perfect. So how, if you can answer this, how are Daryl and Darnez doing right now? Do you know?
Yeah, I talk to them at least weekly. Darnez he's doing well. There are some kind of troubling signs with drug abuse when in the womb. The signs kind of come later, and it's like learning disabilities, that kind of stuff. So there are some, let's say, little red flags that are coming up. But he wears, I'm gonna get the sizes wrong, but he's like 5 sizes. He's huge. He's like probably he's over 4 foot. He's incredible. So Darnez is doing really well as far as we can tell so far. Those things, as I said, come a little later. Daryl's doing well. They're up in, so I won't give, I guess I can say, yeah, they're up in Buffalo now. He got transferred again from where we leave him in the film. They're doing really well together. COVID touches these kind of communities, even, you know,
right.
A heavier blow, of course. So they are struggling now that COVID's like really taking hold. And
did any of his kids follow him out there or up to Buffalo?
Yes, one of his sons, who I don't think he's not in the film, but one of his sons followed him out to Buffalo to help out a bit. There's still, of course, money constraints, but there's a lot less money constraints without Nani there. They are actually back in contact again over the phone. Hopefully hopefully, well, I won't speak for him, but I'm worried that the cyclical nature of that relationship could rear its ugly head again, especially if he's not that far away in Buffalo.
Right.
There is talk of him coming back to Pennsylvania, New Jersey area for a transfer, but yeah, they're doing really well.
How is Nani and her community doing?
Yeah, so the gang or the group is still together in Camden. We just spoke with Iman's dad yesterday. It's very hard to keep track or keep in contact with them just because of no cell phones and whatnot. But Iman, his father said he's doing better, but of course still struggling. Same thing for Nikki and Nani. It's just same old on the streets of Camden, unfortunately.
Have any of them seen any of the footage of the film or seen the final product?
So we've been trying to get them. It's so hard when they don't have phones.
Right.
We've been hoping for an in-person, local-ish. We'll get them anywhere. I mean, we could have gotten them to Stony Brook, but an East Coast in-person festival, we're hoping to get all of them to, including Daryl and Darnez. And we've been sending them the links for the free online festivals. But as far as Daryl has been pushing that as well. He thinks not viewing it will be a wake-up call. So as far as he can tell, she hasn't watched it. They follow our social medias, so they like all the pictures and the videos, so they're aware that it's out there. But I don't believe they've seen it, unfortunately.
Right.
But yeah, we're working on it.
Wow, it's just this is going to just be a part of your life for years, isn't it?
Yes.
One of the questions I think a lot of viewers are going to leave this movie with is, what can we do? What do we do next? I know for a fact that heroin is a problem on Long Island. I know a lot of people want to deny that it's a problem on Long Island, but the actual facts and figures and talking to people in hospitals will prove that wrong. What do we need to change to have some kind of impact on this? I was wondering what your feelings on that were.
Sure. So we started this film, as I mentioned, not as an opioid piece, but kind of just a portrait into the decline of post-industrial America. But it was really important for us to show these people as humans. Not only, to have, so they could have their say finally, but also to show the viewer, hopefully, that, this isn't that far from something that could happen to you or your family members. And as you said, this is not just a Camden problem. This is a microcosm of the macrocosm. This is an American problem. And we recorded, but didn't end up in the edit, a lot of sit-down interviews with experts, politicians. And those we took out because we didn't want to make a film about policy or politics. We wanted to make a film about the human impact. We wanted to show that, on paper, Nani, Nikki, Iman, they're people that when you come to a stoplight in Camden off the highway, you're rolling up your windows, you're terrified. And we wanted to show that these people aren't monsters. On paper, Nani is, a really tough character to love, a really tough character not to hate, I would say. But there is a person under there. There is a person under Nikki, Iman, and even Daryl. Daryl suffers from his own addictions. I would say Daryl's just as tragically addicted to Nani, and he has an alcohol problem as well. But we built him as a character because that's what he is. He's a human. He has a story. So I would say, yes, 1 in 8 households in America suffers from some sort of substance abuse. And it is a huge problem, but we didn't put in these, at the end there's a few, but we didn't put in these kind of facts and stats because we just wanted it to be a human story. So leaving well, not the theater anymore, but leaving the online viewing experience, I would just take a line from, in the beginning of the film, Marianne, she's the kind of little old homeless lady. She comes up to the car. And they used to live in the old Campbell Soup Factory. And we filmed with them a lot, and it was one of the later cuts again. And her whole thing was that she didn't want to be viewed as a monster, even though she said, I look like a monster, but I'm not a monster. So when you pull up, roll down the window, you can say you don't have any change, but just make eye contact and say hi. Like that's all you wanted to do. So that's what I would encourage these viewers to do, especially viewers who are in cities close to or in these regions that are really affected by not just the opioid crisis, but decades of systemic neglect. I would encourage them to be softer, be gentler. They're not animals, and they are someone's sister, mom, dad. So just, be kind and understand that this wasn't their choice. And deep down, they are not even deep down a lot of times on the surface. They are very human, very like you and me.
That's a good word. That's some great advice there. I really appreciate that. Hassan, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And I hope we can have you out here in person someday soon.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you for taking the time to speak to me, and also for screening our film. We're really excited about it.